The future is arriving faster than most people realize, and Business Analysis for Dummies helps you get ready for it. We will focus on what it says about project and business. Stay with me, the best part is near the end. Chapter 1: Business Analysis in a Nutshell. Defining business analysis, knowing your role in the basic business analysis life cycle, looking at the value of business analysis, considering the skills of a successful BA, outstanding communication, detailed research, analysis, and recording, time management and information organization, the ability to see the big picture, customer-focused and value-driven perspective, a large BA toolkit, flexibility, getting to know the IEBA Barbak, pursuing business analysis certification. Chapter 2: Breaking down the different levels of business analysis. Checking out an overview of the levels, going to the top. The enterprise level, doing business analysis activities at the enterprise level, overcoming challenges at the enterprise level, moving to the organizational level, fulfilling duties at the organizational level, dealing with organizational level obstacles, drilling down to the operational level, knowing your tasks at the operational level, taking on operational level challenges, getting a handle on the project level, tackling activities at the project level, rising above project level hurdles. Chapter 3: Identifying and working with stakeholders. Reviewing a who's who of potential project participants, starting at the top with management, seeking subject matter experts, adding project support personnel, turning to technical personnel, identifying the stakeholders in your project, find your stakeholders, using the RACI matrix, playing and communicating well with others, targeting your communication to the various stakeholders, using active listening to your advantage, overcoming common barriers to effective communications, understanding and responding to verbal and non-verbal messages, fostering strong relationships, building trust and respect, generating consensus, gaining buy-in. Chapter 4: Talking about tools of the trade. Examining communication tools for every situation, talking about your options, choosing the right communication tool, trying collaboration tools, physical places, electronic places, investigating innovation and idea capture tools, looking at the technology spectrum, considering specific features, discovering definition tools, textual definition tools, modeling and diagramming tools, prototyping and simulation tools, reviewing requirements management tools, low and mid-tech options, high-tech options, picking the right tools for the situation, inventorying the situation you have now, determining what situation you need later, avoiding unnecessary tools and features, money, facing budget challenges, preparing team members for change. Chapter 5: Understanding what requirements truly entail. Defining needs, business needs, stakeholder needs, defining requirements, business requirements, stakeholder requirements, solution requirements, transition requirements, technology requirements, making your requirements excellent, complete, correct, unambiguous, verifiable, necessary, feasible, prioritized, focusing on the 4 core components: data, process, use cases, external agents and actors, business rules. Chapter 6: Hunting for the right information, Part 1: The process. Elicit, don't gather. Developing the right questions, identifying the type of question you want to ask, identifying appropriate sources of information, choosing an approach, using clear, consistent language, choosing terms consistently, using language that is consistent with the company's language, framing questions that clearly reveal core needs, planning your elicitation sessions. Chapter 7: Hunting for the right information, Part 2: The techniques. Starting with document analysis, understanding the benefits of document analysis, perusing examples of documents you can review, looking out for observation, knowing when to use observation, choosing your observation method, and completing the process, conducting interviews, preparing for the interview, interviewing the stakeholder, documenting the interview, distributing surveys, dressing for the occasion. Types of surveys: maximizing the chances of getting a response, compiling and using the data, getting to know requirements, workshops, identifying participants, scheduling a workshop, managing the session, brainstorming, considering focus groups, doing interface analysis, prototyping, throwaway prototypes, evolutionary prototype, simulation prototype, reverse engineering, choosing competitive analysis. Chapter 8. Uncovering and analyzing needs. Investigating the needs, discovering a company's specific business needs, searching out stakeholder needs, uncovering the root cause, evaluating the problem, choosing a good problem to solve, figuring out whether the problem matters, determining the impact of the problem, establishing the costs and benefits, creating the problem statement, creating the solution position statement, knowing when you have the right solution, validating the value of the solution, taking your audience into consideration, setting your solution up for success, getting clear objectives, eliciting and articulating clear objectives, getting clear with SMART objectives. Chapter 9. Making the business case. Before you dive in, breaking down business case basics, looking at the benefits of writing a business case, playing to the crowd, knowing your audience, following basic business case structure, defining and presenting the opportunity, executive summary, mission statement, description of the approach used, justifying the recommendation, identifying and prioritizing alternative solutions, including a cost-benefit analysis. The devil is in the details. Providing supporting materials, addressing supporting documentation, noting your assumptions, documenting risk, presenting the business case. Chapter 10. Creating and maintaining scope. Making sure you're scoping the right solution, recognizing relevant stakeholders, uncovering stakeholders by asking project-specific questions, discovering key stakeholders in different parts of the organization, ensuring that the scope aligns with key business drivers, identifying interfaces that are part of the project, user interfaces, system interfaces, hardware interfaces, defining scope with a data flow diagram, identifying parties and systems that will be impacted by the project, identifying information, data flows among the parties or systems, gaining consensus on the scope for the project, giving the project a descriptive name, finalizing the scope diagram, using project initiation documentation to clarify scope, stating the purpose of the project, describing the project approach or methodology, listing project objectives, articulating problems and opportunities, outlining risks, specifying project assumptions and constraints, documenting high-level processes, identifying who's responsible for each deliverable, indicating what ISNT covered, items not in scope, getting agreement on the scope, avoiding scope creep, spotting scope creep, formulating a change control process. Chapter 11. Creating your work plan. Hashing out work plan basics, considering the key components of a business analysis work plan, using a framework to create your plan, perusing the project characteristics, identifying project type, project size, other things, taking it to the people. The stakeholder communication plan, identifying the people, getting to know the stakeholders, getting stakeholders involved, putting together the stakeholder communication plan, the process, figuring out how things are done, waterfall, agile development methodologies, spiral model, a rational unified process, RUP, RAD, prototyping, compiling your work plan. Chapter 12. Defining solutions, Part 1, taking a closer look. Categorizing your requirements, getting the process started, choosing the right category, documenting your requirements, documenting business and stakeholder requirements, documenting solution requirements, both functional and non-functional, documenting transition requirements, documenting technical requirements, ensuring your requirements have traceability. Chapter 13, Defining Solutions, Part 2, Choosing the Right Analysis Technique. Dealing with data flow diagrams and external interaction, textual templates, getting a handle on data flow diagrams, examining the external interaction, textual template ERD is the word, using entity relationship diagrams, getting familiar with the ERD, presenting the data with entity relationship text templates, rounding out the data. Entity text templates, drilling down a process decomposition diagram. Step 1. Creating the process decomposition diagram. Step 2. Documenting the processes, deciding on decision tables, working with workflow diagrams, decoding diagram symbols, creating a workflow diagram, seeing a diagram in action. An example, making a use case model, the graphic use case diagram, the text use case description, prototyping, familiarizing yourself with mockup basics, creating mockups, keeping it brief with user stories, creating user stories, confirming user stories. Chapter 14, Verifying and Validating Solutions. Getting a handle on testing basics, differentiating between verification and validation, making testing an ongoing activity, verification testing, confirming you built the system right, smoke test unit, test integration, test system, test validation testing, making sure you built the right system, utilizing a usability test, getting users involved with a user acceptance test, receiving feedback with a post-implementation user assessment, preparing for the test, creating test cases, putting together the verification and validation plan, conducting a requirements review, conducting a step-by-step review of the artifact, recruiting participants. Chapter 15, Transition, moving from planning to implementing. Preparing for the transition, requirements, the basics, reviewing the requirement components, assessing organization readiness, fostering stakeholders' motivation and competence, rolling out your strategy with the right approach, trying parallel processing, picking, piloting, selecting single cutover, examining the components of your rollout plan, turning your solution over to operations. Chapter 16, 10 Ways to Keep Your Business Analysis Skills Sharp. Participate in social media network with peers, get or be a mentor, leverage peer reviews, attend formal training, present on business analysis topics, read books like this one. Have lunch with business partners, rotate to multiple business domains or applications, use business analysis techniques at home. Chapter 17, 10 Ways to Prepare Yourself for a New Project. Hit the ground running and get up to speed, clear your calendar and your to-do list, take a vacation. Get organized, identify what has been done so far, color in the solution, define everyone's roles, responsibilities, and deadlines, get to know the core team, extend a hand to the extended team, collaborate. Chapter 18, 10 Experts Chime. The Three Panes Approach to Better Elicitation, Hans Ekman, Context Diagram, Ali Ibargan, Affinity Diagram, Jonathan Babcock, Process One-Pager, Robin Grace, Data Modeling, David Morris, Facilitated Session, Shelley Ruth, Root Cause Analysis, Kathy Claycomb, Requirements Traceability, Russ Pina, Functional Decomposition Diagram, Greg Busby. It's all about the communication. Chapter 19, Business and Project. Business analysis in a nutshell. In this chapter, grasping what business analysis is and why it's valuable, tracking a business analyst's role and skills, introducing industry guidelines and certification options. In today's competitive world, companies must always be at their best, maintain an edge, and capitalize on opportunities for growth. Business analysis is a deliberate attempt to review operations to ensure that business is moving along as well as it can and that the company is taking advantage of opportunities. Basically, Business analysis is a set of tasks and activities that help companies determine their objectives for meeting certain opportunities or addressing challenges, and then help them define solutions to meet those objectives. Sometimes, companies hire outside, independent business analysts, BAS, to come in and perform the analysis. Other times, they may call upon an employee to perform BA tasks internally regardless of whether he has a business analyst title. No matter which category you fit into, this book lays it all out for you. In this chapter, we give you a very broad overview of what business analysis is, introduce you to the business analysis life cycle, and explain what the job entails. Defining business analysis according to the Business Analysis Body of Knowledge, Barbook, Version 2, business analysis is the set of tasks and techniques used to work as a liaison among stakeholders in order to understand the structure, policies, and operations of an organization, and to recommend solutions that enable the organization to achieve its goals. Translation: your goal as a BA is to understand how companies work and to enable companies to reach their potential by helping them articulate and meet goals, recognize and take advantage of opportunities, or identify and overcome challenges. All of which is a pretty tall order. But the task becomes more manageable and understandable if you think of it as having two distinct parts: the goal and the process. The goal addresses why you're doing the analysis in the first place, perhaps to improve a company's revenue and services, or to reduce its costs. Think of the goal as the purpose of the project. In order to determine what the real goal is, you often have to employ the most frequently asked question in the world of business analysis: why? Although we go into much deeper detail later in the book about discovering the goal of a project, the process really can be as simple as asking why until you've gotten to the root of the issue. This fact is one reason we feel a 4-year-old is the best business analysis professional around. The process involves understanding the how, that is, understanding what the solution needs to do, what it should look like, and the people or systems that interact with it. The process requires you to grasp where the company is today and where it needs to be in order to achieve the goal. During this part, you determine what the solution should look and feel like and how to make sure it's used after developed. To develop the process, you basically break the goal down into manageable pieces that you and the company can execute. Those manageable pieces make up the solution. In business analysis, you do not actually perform the activities to build the solution, nor do you actually manage the process to build the solution or test the solution. Instead, you identify the activities that enable the company, with your expert help, of course, to define the business problem or opportunity, define what the solution looks like, and define how it should behave in the end. As the BA, you lay out the plans for the process ahead. Knowing your role in the basic business analysis lifecycle, business analysis work is done at many levels within a company. From the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, and Vice Presidents to the line managers, individuals throughout the company use business analysis activities throughout their day. Because folks at all levels view things in terms of a project, a set of steps to accomplish something, explaining business analysis activities as part of a project life cycle. Although these tasks fall in a general order, they are somewhat fluid, as we discuss in later chapters. For now, get to know this cycle. It's at the crux of all things business analysis. 1. Plan the project. Planning includes creating a work plan, or at least thinking through an approach for the analysis effort on a project, encompassing all the activities you do and the techniques you use. As the BA, your primary role during planning is determining the scope of the effort. If you're a more senior BA, you may be involved in project estimation and resource planning. These additional tasks are detailed in Chapter 11. Scope the project. Defining and documenting the project scope requires you to understand why the project has been initiated, the project statement of purpose, and the goals of the project objectives. As the BA, you hold folks to the project boundaries and analyze the business problem without jumping to a solution. This step includes clearly identifying the opportunity or problem the company needs to address. Includes information on how to develop a business case, which also discusses the problem definition. For more on scoping, flip to Chapter 10. Elicit, analyze, and communicate requirements. This step is the bulk of what business analysis professionals do at the project level. As the BA, you actively partake in understanding the real business needs and finding the root cause of business problems, as well as communicating requirements to the intended audience. This task involves categorizing the requirements and knowing how detailed they have to be to ensure your project is solving the right problem. We discuss requirements in Chapters 5 through 8. Design the solution. BAS aren't typically responsible for this activity, rather, they collaborate with the solution team to develop a solution. Because solution design isn't a core business analysis activity, we don't cover it in this book. However, the fact that design doesn't fall to you doesn't mean you should walk away when the designing starts. Having the BAS available to support the design and development team is important. Build or buy the solution. Based on the activities in steps 1 through 4, the business and project team make a decision to build the solution internally, have a group outside the company build it, or buy a prepackaged solution. During this time, your role is to ensure the solution still meets the business needs stated in the project objectives and the business requirements. In addition, you may also start writing test cases and test scenarios for the next test phase. Test the solution. As the solution is being designed and built, you need to validate that the business needs elicited during the project are being met. You collaborate with the test team, either as an active tester, or by working with the testing team to ensure the solution meets the stated requirements and other project documentation. You can find out more about how to test solutions in Chapter 14. Implement the solution. After a solution is built, you need to help make sure the business uses the solution. You actively work with project stakeholders as the solution rolls out, perhaps as a change agent, advocating the need for change, and/or to train new users on the system. Part of the implementation may be eliciting metrics surrounding usability, noting how quickly they are adapting to the new system, and gauging customer satisfaction. We cover implementation in detail in Chapter 15. Conduct a post-implementation review. After the solution has been implemented, you need to make sure the goals outlined in the project are being met. If they aren't, another project may be necessary to address the gap. We detail post-implementation review in Chapter 14. Illustration by Wiley, Composition Services Graphics -1, a generic project life cycle. Don't confuse the post-implementation review with a lessons learned process. The latter generally discusses how you can do the project process better, not how well the solution works for the business. Looking at the value of business analysis. A popular perception of business analysis is that it makes businesses do business better. It's simple but true, and BAS are the people who function as the liaisons between the problems and solutions to make businesses everywhere do business better. Here are just a few of the ways that your performance as a BA can help an organization. Setting expectations. BAS helps stakeholders define a solution for their problem. After a solution has been defined, whether that solution is to build a 4-bedroom, wheelchair-accessible, 3-car garage house, or to improve a business process to reduce costs, expectations are set. The stakeholders, the future homeowners, the business owner, executives, or whoever, expect that whatever actions follow will result in the solution that was identified. Improving estimation. Most people don't like surprises when it comes to time and cost estimates. Performing business analysis helps define what needs to be accomplished. Having this clearer picture lets organizations do a better job of estimating what their solutions will cost and how long they'll take to implement. Better aligning projects with goals or objectives. Because business analysis professionals work on both the why and the how pieces, they can see when a solution is no longer aligned with the goals and objectives. CUPE was working on a project where the goal was to reduce employee time on a specific process for a utility company and therefore reduce salary costs associated with that process. He identified many parts of the process that could be automated, thereby reducing employee hours spent on the process. At one point, CUPE asked how many people performed a particular part of the process and how often, only to find that one person did it 3 times per year. Automating that part of the process would cost $10,000 and save approximately 30 minutes of work time and $12 in salary cost per year. Automating this part of the process didn't align to the goal of reducing costs, so CUPE convinced everyone not to automate. If you discover that the project work is no longer adding value to reaching the goals and objectives of the company, one of the best things you, as the BA, can do is cancel the project. Managing scope creep. Scope creep refers to the phenomenon of bringing in new requirements after everyone agrees on what should be included in a project. In companies where projects are going on all the time, scope creep is going to happen. Gain buy-in on the project scope from all impacted people as early as possible. Then, when scope creep happens, you can show the impact the new requirements would have so the business can make an informed decision. For example, say you're on a project where you're solving a productivity issue for one department of a company. Halfway through, the company wants to include another department. In this case, you have to review the original scope with the company and outline how the added department will change the project so the decision makers can determine whether to proceed with the change. Reducing project defects. Business analysis activities detail the rules, process, and user interactions of the solution. This level of detail helps provide clear direction for the people developing the solution and those testing the solution to help ensure that defects are reduced and caught before the solution is implemented. In a solution that enables customers to buy products from a website, for example, one of the required conditions would be that the customer must enter a complete address. The BA would then elicit requirements surrounding the expected experience from the customer's viewpoint. Does the company cancel the order? Do the customers receive an error message? If so, what does the message say? Smoothing the transition to production. Transition, as it relates to projects, is all about moving from the development and test environment, where you're building the solution, to the production environment, where the users are actually using the solution. Good business analysis includes ensuring the solution will be used in production, which you do by getting the organization ready for the change and developing a rollout strategy. Reusing requirements and reducing duplicate solutions. For every initiative, BAS should be careful not to duplicate requirements underway in different areas of the company. Because you often develop many solutions at the same time for the same goals and objectives, companies may well be working on multiple projects trying to accomplish the same thing. Cube was working at an energy company that was trying to improve the operations of its 4 real estate divisions. Each division was independently trying to address the same need, updating the real estate database. By looking outside each individual group, Cube and a team suggested combining efforts that could save time and money by focusing on one solution rather than 4. Improving communication within the team. Business analysis activities boil down to communication. One of the BAS main roles is to elicit and communicate the true needs of the business so the right solution can be delivered. Making sure everyone has a clear and consistent understanding of what needs to be accomplished helps ensure all sides are working together to accomplish the goal. Increasing customer satisfaction. BAS help address the inevitable changes a company goes through and can help mitigate any problems customers may feel as a result of those changes. One of the biggest ways you, as a BA, can help is by facilitating communication of the changes to customers. For example, if the company wants to make a change to its services or product, you can help it determine what the impact on the customers will be and how to effectively communicate the upcoming changes to those affected. Considering the skills of a successful BA when performing business analysis, you need to be equally proficient in several skills so you can apply them at different times based on the project you're working on. But you can't stop there, you also have to know when to use which skill. The following sections spell out a few skills you need to succeed at business analysis. Outstanding communication is integral to everything in business analysis, so you need to be great at it. BAS operate at the intersection of business problems and business solutions, which means you have to be able to communicate with 2 groups of folks that sometimes seem to be speaking different languages. We cover more on communication in Chapter 3. Detailed research, analysis, and recording. BAS need to have the curiosity for understanding processes, procedures, and systems. They shouldn't be afraid to ask questions. If you're consistently the person in the room, with your hand up when a presenter asks for question, you just may be cut out for work as a BA. Even if you know the subject matter well, you can still ask questions to understand it in more depth and detail. That curiosity helps you understand what each person needs from the project. The key isn't just asking questions of other people, it's wanting to understand all aspects about how something works or what the underlying problem is. Such curiosity could lead to conducting research on your own to figure out where the problem exists, and then analyzing the issues and barriers that would create an effective solution. Time management and information organization. If you ask a true BA when analysis is done, his answer will be never. However, the reality is that you have a limited time to complete your project, so to be successful, you have to be able to effectively manage your work and be good at setting priorities. Because you'll be dealing with a lot of people and a lot of information, you need to be good at organizing all the information in a way that lets you recall it when needed to support your communication. You need to understand which pieces of your elicited information are relevant to which stakeholders, and how you are going to use what you found to communicate your results. The ability to see the big picture. If you get close enough to an impressionist painting, all you see are brush strokes. Only as you move away from the painting can you start to see the image of a cathedral or a picnic. Being able to step away from the project at hand and see the big picture is crucial for any business analysis practitioner. You must be able to work on a project while understanding how that project fits in with other projects in the organization and continues to meet the business's overall objectives. This macro view is a particularly important skill because the BA is typically the only person with this vital perspective. You're the one who can keep efforts relevant, synergistic, and efficient. Once, a project Paul was a part of was being worked on by several smaller areas, or silos, in BA lingo, within one organization. He studied the entire end-to-end process, including the different silos, and discovered that multiple silos were creating the same data stores, when having just one for everyone to access made more sense. Focusing on the big picture allowed Paul to catch the issue in time to get things back on track. Customer-focused and value-driven perspective. To be a good BA, you must always keep in mind what your customer needs from you. That probably seems like a no-brainer, but keep in mind that we're not just talking about external customers who purchase your organization's products and services. We're also referring to internal customers from other departments and even to those on your project team. With any of these customers, you have to make sure that whatever you produce provides value to the customer and to the project you're working on. A large BA toolkit. Abraham Maslow, the famous psychologist, once said, "I suppose it is tempting, if the only tool you have is a hammer, to treat everything as if it were a nail." This concept led to the law of the instrument, or over-reliance on one familiar tool. As a business analysis professional, you need to avoid falling victim to this law. By having a large toolkit, you can apply the right tool to the situation at hand. You have to know which tools work best based on the context and the situation. For instance, if you're trying to model data, the best tool is to use an entity relationship diagram, not a workflow. More on data modeling in Chapter 13. If you need to show your stakeholders what your solution would look like in real life, you use a prototype. Chapter 4. On the other hand, if stakeholders just need the nuts and bolts and bottom line of the project, you want to make sure you can write a strong business case. Chapter 9. If you're trying to make sure your project stays on track and doesn't go out of bounds, you use your scoping diagram. Chapter 10. In addition to the business analysis techniques covered in the book, you need to have a good grasp on the types of solutions specific to your business or field. For example, if you work in an area that develops web applications, you want to be familiar with and stay current on the features and functions that technology can deliver. Flexibility. Don't worry, nothing about business analysis requires you to take yoga classes. The flexibility we're talking about here is the way you respond to changes on a project. Flexibility is important because the question isn't whether changes will occur on a project, it's when changes will occur. You need to be able to roll with the punches calmly and change gears swiftly. Scope can be expanded, new features discussed, and possibilities tossed around, all of which may lead to change. Refusing to change along with the project doesn't bode very well for you as the BA or for the project team as a whole, and may cause project defects. In fact, you probably have to be the most flexible because you're at the center of the communication. You have to be able to adapt to changes on a project and adjust accordingly. The more quickly you accept the change, the more time you have to steer the project in the new direction. Flexibility isn't just about being adaptable to changes to project requirements. You often have to be flexible when the human aspect of your project, such as team members, changes. Getting to know the IEBA Barbuck in 2003, a group of professionals involved with business analysis got together with a mission to help promote the profession, certify practitioners, and have a space for the community to share experiences and learn from each other. Thus, the International Institute of Business Analysis, IIBA, was born. Today, IIBA is responsible for maintaining the guide to the business analysis body of knowledge, Barbuck Guide. The Barbuck Guide describes business analysis areas of knowledge, associated activities, and the tasks and skills a BA must do or have in order to be effective. The Barbuck Guide ISNTABA How-To Manual, which may be what led you to purchase this book. Instead, it's a framework of 6 areas of knowledge: business analysis, planning and monitoring, figuring out which activities are needed in order to perform the effort contained inside the project scope, elicitation, getting information from stakeholders, requirements management and communication, engaging the project team, sponsors, and stakeholders to keep them informed of project progress, scope alignment, changes to the scope, and the explanation of requirements, enterprise analysis, finding, and clarifying the real need to meet the strategic goals of the enterprise requirements analysis, classifying and prioritizing requirements in order to develop the solution assessment and validation, assessing which of the potential solutions best fits the business need and assessing the performance and effectiveness of the solution. In addition to these knowledge areas, the Barbuck Guide covers another, equally important area that ISNT considered a knowledge area: underlying competencies. Underlying competencies are skills an effective BA should have in order to perform as an effective business analyst. They consist of analytical thinking and problem solving, behavioral characteristics, such as ethics, trustworthiness, and personal organization, business knowledge, communication skills, interaction skills, and software application knowledge. Many of these are the same as are related to the essential skills we discuss in the earlier section considering the skills of a successful BA. Pursuing business analysis certification, why get certified? This is a question BAS are still discussing on business analysis chat forums, and there are a lot of reasons why. Basically, though, it comes down to showing you have the requisite skills and experience to be effective in performing business analysis in the industry. In other words, a certification verifies that a third party, the IIBA, has recognized you have the right stuff. The IIBA began offering certifications in November 2006 and provides an industry certification that measures a BA's knowledge of the Barbuck. IIBA currently offers 2 levels of certification: Certification of Competency in Business Analysis, CCBA, and Certified Business Analysis Professional, CBAP. You can find the specific requirements on the association's website at www.ieba.org. Many training vendors also offer certifications based on IIBA's business analysis curriculum. For example, B2T Training's curriculum aligns with the Barbuck and helps prepare individuals for both IIBA certifications and B2T training certifications. You can find a lot of different certification programs, and the money and time you spend on them varies widely. For example, some certificate programs offered by training providers test your knowledge. The cost of earning the certificate is typically included in the cost of taking the courses. Here's what these programs often entail. You need to take a certain number of courses designated by the training provider. You may have to pass an exam after each course. You get your certificate after completing the courses and passing necessary exams. Some certification programs involve a little more effort from the student, including prerequisites such as the following: you have had a certain amount of work experience, complete with references. You have had some formal BA training. Other training providers have programs that both test your knowledge and incorporate a competency portion where you must show you can perform the work. These programs have a combination of tests and demonstration. Evaluate certification programs and select the appropriate option based on your corporate and personal professional goals. Copy, add, highlight, add note. Chapter 20, Level and Project. Breaking down the different levels of business analysis. In this chapter, identifying the different levels of analysis work, comparing and contrasting analysis efforts, at each level identifying the key people and critical challenges, at each level of analysis. Essentially, you perform business analysis at four main levels within a company: the enterprise level, the organizational level, the operational level, and the project level. When taking on most projects as a business analyst, BA, you perform analysis on one level only, although analysis at any level always needs to support the company's overall goals, mission, and objectives. Most often, multiple projects come together to meet multiple operational goals, which then meet multiple organizational area goals, which in turn meet the big picture strategy of an enterprise. All parts of a company, including your and others' analysis projects, need to work together to optimize efforts and maximize success. This criteria means that even if you set out to analyze on just one level, you may end up analyzing on any and all levels during your project. As we mentioned throughout this book, being a BA requires a lot of flexibility and fluidity, beginning with the level at which you work. In this chapter, we detail the characteristics of each level and provide examples of when you may need to perform them. We also point out common challenges and explain how all the levels relate to each other. Checking out an overview of the levels. Each level of analysis is distinct from but related to the others in a hierarchy that builds from the top down. The topmost level, enterprise, contains just one entity, but the bottom level, project, has many entities. The concept makes more sense if you break it down by level. Starting at the top, the enterprise level offers the biggest picture of a company. It's where you do the most strategic work and where the highest priority and most visible projects usually reside. The organizational level is the collection of distinct business areas or general regions that make up a company. The operational level features the various tasks, often divided into specific departments or divisions, performed in order to run an organization. The project level is the level at which you execute projects to deliver support or enable the company's organizational areas and/or operational functions to achieve their objectives. Illustration by Wiley, Composition Services Graphics -1, Hierarchy of Levels. The levels aren't always so clearly defined, however. A structure that is more like a matrix for a fictional technology company called Computer Central. Before analyzing a potential opportunity or problem within a company such as this one, you must identify how the company levels interact and know where your project exists among them. For example, say Computer Central develops a new piece of hardware for one of its existing market segments to support the enterprise's strategic objectives of having a larger presence. At an organizational level, the company is concerned with the development and delivery of the new product. At the operational level, it's concerned with marketing, shipping, and accounting for the product sales. And finally, this hardware initiative results in multiple projects that reside across the various organizational and operational levels, and ultimately, the enterprise level. Illustration by Wiley, Composition Services Graphics -2, Matrix of Levels. Going to the top, the enterprise level. When we talk about the enterprise level, we don't mean a deck on the spaceship from Star Trek. We're referring to the level at which strategic company decisions happen and then trickle down through the company, impacting policies and procedures at all levels. The enterprise level is the collective whole of a company viewed from the highest perspective, such as a parent organization, and contains more than one organizational level. For example, think of a company like Turner Broadcasting System Incorporated. It has organizational levels that include news networks, such as CNN, and entertainment networks, such as TNT and Cartoon Network. Even smaller independent companies, such as a law firm or a department of the local or federal government, make decisions on an enterprise level. This level of analysis is often the starting point for a brand new project and provides context for your requirements analysis and solution development. More on this topic in Chapter 5. When you analyze at this level, you can reveal to companies where they have a gap or are operating ineffectively. Enterprise-level analysis also enables you and the company to determine whether the company should go into a new business area or expand an existing area farther, like how Apple grew from just selling computers to offering MP3 players and tablets, and whether the company should purchase or sell to another company, such as when Google purchased YouTube. Performing enterprise analysis involves big-picture thinking to positively and strategically impact the entire company. When doing analysis at this level, you most often work with the senior leaders of the company, such as the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, Chief Information Officer, CIO, Chief Financial Officer, CFO, and Chief Operating Officer, COO. This level of leadership is referred to as the C-level. Most organizations have departments that focus primarily on enterprise strategic planning and development that consist of executives and marketing, research, and financial analysts. Depending on the strategic initiative, individuals from other levels, such as organizational or operational, may also be involved. BAS don't often work at this level until much later in their careers, so your main task until then is to make sure your work on the lower levels always supports this level. Doing business analysis activities at the enterprise level analysis focuses on optimizing interactions across multiple organizations within a company to benefit the whole. Business analysis activities that take place at this level include the following: defining the business needs, the rules that govern the company, see Chapters 5 and 8, eliciting goals and competitive product analysis, Chapter 7, mapping as is current state and to be a future state company processes and process reengineering, Chapter 13, defining the business case, or the reasons you're going forward with a project, Chapter 9, defining solution scope, what the boundaries of your project are. Chapter 10, determining solution approach, or the way to solve the problem at hand, Chapter 12, overcoming challenges at the enterprise level. Working with senior leaders in any size company comes with challenges. For starters, you typically can get only a limited amount of time with these folks. In large organizations, they may be spread across different offices, which makes getting the group together when necessary extra difficult. For this reason, you need to have clear goals regarding what you want to accomplish in every meeting with senior leaders. You need to be very confident in your techniques and have a plan for how you'll approach each interaction. Know each leader's preferred communication style and use it during meetings with them, while providing them with updates, and in presentations related to the initiative. For more on creating a stakeholder communication plan. Another obstacle at this level is access. You may need access to market and competitive information or financial information, including salaries, that is typically confidential and not shared openly with everyone in the organization. If you aren't authorized to receive info you need, you have to get creative. Find someone who does have access and have her provide the answer in a format that doesn't give detailed confidential information, but provides enough to perform your analysis. For example, CUPE worked on a strategic initiative analyzing a core process that spanned multiple business areas of a company. One of the pieces of information he was analyzing was the cost of doing the process, including salary information he didn't have access to. To get what he needed, CUPE just asked individuals who had access to provide him with a total salary number for groups of individuals across the business areas. Moving to the organizational level. The organizational level is the level just below enterprise. It refers to the company's general areas or large regions. Organizational analysis focuses on optimizing the activities and processes within these individual organizational silos, as opposed to the interactions between them, which is the domain of enterprise-level analysis. Depending on the organization's size, a separate strategic group may work to define goals and prioritize projects within the organization. As a BA, you need to spend some time with this group to understand the goals and priorities within the organization and properly plan your projects. The people you interact with at this level of analysis are one layer below executive leaders, most likely directors, or VPs of the different business areas. Their main focus is on their specific domains. Think about the division of Microsoft responsible for the Xbox. The leaders of that business area or organization probably don't put much thought into how the sales of Microsoft Office are going. Their concerns relate only to Xbox. When you're doing analysis at the organizational level, understanding the enterprise-level goals helps you prioritize and plan efforts at the organizational level. Say one organization within a company brings you on to develop and roll out a new piece of hardware, but you discover that the enterprise has placed a higher priority on rolling out a different product for a different market segment. In this case, the organization may not want to fund the project or support its development after all, given the priorities on the enterprise level. Even if the enterprise approves the project to begin with, the project may be stalled during the development. Fulfilling duties at the organizational level. The activities you perform on this level are generally the same as at the enterprise level, but the scope and specific problems you solve are different. You can imagine the organization areas as enterprises of their own that roll up to the parent enterprise. For example, say a company has a strategic plan at the enterprise level to broaden its market reach by increasing the number of computers it sells. The company has 3 organizations, one that sells computers, another that sells computer accessories, such as keyboards and monitors, and a third that sells software products. On the organizational analysis level, you work with each separate organization to develop a strategic plan specific to each area. Those plans then fit together into the broader picture to meet the ultimate goal of selling more computers. For each organization, the business analysis tasks you do include the following: conducting strategic plan development for the organization. Flip to Chapter 9, facilitating strategic goal-setting sessions, and performing competitive product analysis specific to an organization, using competitive analysis as an elicitation technique. Chapter 7, defining success metrics for the organization and aligning them with the strategic direction of the enterprise. Chapter 9, understanding how workflow is used to implement changes in process re-engineering. Chapter 15, replicating enterprise analysis activities, including defining business need. Chapter 9, assessing capability gaps. Chapter 9, process mapping the current and future states, using workflow as a tool to identify and define your processes. Chapter 13, in the end, these efforts need to tie back into the goals and strategy of the larger enterprise. Dealing with organizational level obstacles. The big challenge you encounter when performing organizational analysis is that the leaders of each organizational unit may not care about integration points among other organizational units throughout the company. These leaders own and control their domains and are responsible for the success or failure of their specific areas. You may identify gaps and overlaps among the organizations, but each individual organization may decide those gaps aren't its problem, especially if it's currently working efficiently and successfully as a standalone entity. We aren't saying that the organization leaders don't care about the enterprise's goals and needs. The leaders are rewarded and judged based on how their organizations perform, so that's where their focus is. If an effort takes a leader's time away from her organization, and she doesn't know how it will help her particular area, she'll be less inclined to play along. You can mitigate this situation by always reminding each organization leader how the project will positively impact her personal area. Demonstrate the project's relevance and importance as it relates specifically to each leader's domain, and your work will be infinitely easier. Also, if an organizational level project makes changes to processes or systems that impact another organizational or operational level, it can cause conflicts and expand the scope of analysis necessary for the project. Although the project may result in resolving a problem for one organization silo, it may actually cause a problem for another silo. As a business analysis professional, you're responsible for highlighting the potential conflicts and identifying how the scope will increase so the leaders of the organization can make an informed decision on how to move forward. They may decide not to expand scope, because doing so may result in problems for another organization. That outcome is okay. You did your due diligence and explained the consequences to the leaders so they could make the decision they needed to. Drilling down to the operational level. The operational level is another step down in the hierarchy, so now you're getting into more specific areas here, such as departments within the company's regions or divisions. In an entertainment company, for example, you find the programming division, which leads the effort to purchase, create, and schedule programming, and the network operations division that gets the shows on the air. Most organizations that have large initiatives resulting in multiple projects set up program managers or departments to manage the entire rollout of the initiative. At this level, you work with individual department heads or line managers, such as the sales director or the head of marketing. These folks are responsible for a specific process or multiple processes within an organization. Knowing your tasks at the operational level. At this level, you should focus your business analysis efforts on developing a program, a group of projects that allow the operational area to achieve the goal of the organizational or enterprise-level initiative. For example, to roll out a new hardware product to a market segment, you'd launch several projects, including developing a marketing campaign, updating systems that support the purchase of and payments for the product, and incorporating new processes for product delivery and maintenance. Some of the BAS activities on this level are similar to those for the enterprise and organizational levels we discussed earlier in the chapter, in that leaders at this level are concerned with the goals and strategy for their departments. However, more detailed analysis activities take place here. New project or product business case development or project proposals, feasibility studies, understanding whether the organization can really accomplish an objective with a particular solution. Chapter 8, Process Modeling Across Operations Area Diagramming with Workflows. Chapter 13, Product Definition Using Elicitation to Uncover the Requirements Making Up the Product. Chapters 6 and 7, Project Vision Definition Identifying the direction for the project and putting boundaries around the solution. Chapter 10, Creating and Managing Project Metrics and Measurements Creating an Effective Plan. Chapter 11, Note. At this stage, while you are working on a document that will be involved in a project, at the operational level, the documents you work on will turn into projects, probably, but you get involved with them at this point. Transition requirement development, moving from planning into implementing and understanding all that implementation entails. Chapter 15, Taking on operational level challenges. Operational leaders tend to look only at their own areas and at being more efficient and more effective to help reach the organizational goals. The operation managers may have a sole focus on their departments, but they also need to understand how they fit into the organizational goals, which fit into the enterprise goals. This risk extends beyond the higher-ups as well. At the operational level, company employees are responsible for supporting the ongoing operational needs of the business and have very little time to work on new initiatives or provide innovative ideas for improvement. They need to do things like sell advertising, program shows, and keep the business running. This load alone isn't an easy task at any company, so asking them to stop and think about where they can improve or add another product to the mix adds stress for them. However, after a company identifies and launches an initiative, like your project, you must engage these individuals in refining the current processes. Eventually, these employees will be responsible for supporting the new processes, so their participation now is key. Learning as much as possible about the enterprise and organizational goals and strategy helps you, as a business analysis professional, to guide and advise the operation leaders. Use this knowledge to support the operation leaders' improvement. If you know their business well, you can help drive the initiative forward while allowing the employees to stay engaged with both the project and their regular operational responsibilities. You can accomplish this balancing act by spending time observing the work done in the operations area and asking questions of the people who work in the business. A great time for this interaction is over lunch with employees, where you can get to know them better, find out more about their business, and understand what drives them. If you follow this strategy with your operational leaders, you can better represent them on projects. And as for observation, just ask to sit and watch how someone does her job. People love showing what they do and how they do it. Getting a handle on the project level. The project level is the lowest level of analysis and is where most of the business analysis work at companies happens, because each enterprise has a handful of organizations, many operational areas for each organization, and many projects per operation area, -1 earlier in the chapter shows you a graphical breakdown of this alignment. Therefore, the business analysis profession is highly focused on the project area. The people you deal with on a regular basis at this level include your solution team members, your project managers, development staff, if you're on a software development project, and quality assurance analysts. On the business side, you work with subject matter experts and users of the solution. Understanding the people you work with on the project is important, so in chapters 3 and 11, we provide more information for conducting stakeholder analysis. Tackling activities at the project level. A project delivers a solution that is meant to enable the operation area to achieve its goals. For example, if a computer company wants to sell more laptop computers and has made a decision to start selling them directly to consumers rather than through retail stores, it needs to initiate a number of projects in order to implement the new goal, such as creating a website where customers can search for items, order products, and track their orders. Because this level is where BAS do most of their work, the rest of the book focuses on this level of analysis in great detail. For now, you should know that although your team can take different project approaches to deliver your project or solution, as we discuss in Chapter 11, the activities you perform at this level remain the same: planning your analysis work for the project, scoping the project, understanding a business case, creating and maintaining the requirement scope for project. Chapters 9 and 10, eliciting and analyzing the business problem or opportunity and understanding the true business need. Chapters 5 through 8, eliciting, analyzing, and communicating the solution requirements. Chapters 12 and 13, verifying that the solution you're building addresses the need and helps the business reach its goals. Chapter 14, developing transition requirements, moving from planning into implementing and understanding all that implementation entails. Chapter 15. At first read of the preceding bullets, you may think that this book's organization doesn't match up to the project activity chronology. But there is a method to our madness. Even though planning is the first thing you do on a project, it requires a certain amount of foundational understanding. As BA trainers, we actually teach our planning class late in our curriculum because our students need to know all the techniques available before they can plan. Rising above project level hurdles, much like at the operational level, getting time from the key project level people you need is difficult. These folks are doing the work day in and day out. They are paid to work for the business, not to work on your project. Although helping improve the current state of the business is part of their jobs, getting the time you need out of them is tough if they are behind on their day-to-day work. To overcome this challenge, concentrate on collaborating with your peers and building good relationships with your teammates. Find out everyone's strengths and determine, as a team, how to work well together. Remind folks, including yourself, that on projects, everyone is part of a larger team. Head to Chapter 11 for more on getting stakeholders involved. You need to be aware of how your project fits into the bigger picture of the business. As a business analyst, you're in the perfect spot to see when a project is no longer aligned with the higher goals of the enterprise. Don't lose the forest for the trees. Build spots into your project where you do a sanity check, that is, you make sure the project is still aligned with operational, organizational, and enterprise goals. These goals can change during the life of the project, so if you don't periodically stop and check, you can drive yourself and everyone else crazy when you realize later that you've just completed a project that no longer adds any value to the company. Chapter 21, Project and Business. Identifying and working with stakeholders in this chapter. Understanding who participates in projects. Knowing the people in your neighborhood, your stakeholders. Figuring out how best to work with various stakeholders. Striving toward effective communication. Stakeholder is a generic term for a person or a group of people who have an interest in an initiative and will be affected by it, directly or indirectly, or have influence over it. In other words, your stakeholders may not necessarily be a part of your project team, so you may have to think outside the box when identifying them. Consider a project to create a new application to support order fulfillment. Obviously, the order fulfillment, warehouse, and distribution departments are stakeholders, but how about the internal technical support desk? They aren't part of the project team, but they will be impacted by the initiative because they will field technical support questions when the system rolls out. This role makes the people in this group stakeholders. In this chapter, we discuss working with different stakeholders as you perform business analysis. Some of them are internal to the company, while others are external. These people have many unique titles, but what they have in common is that they are all relevant to the project in one way or another. We explain how to understand who these people are, how to figure out their degree of involvement in the project, and how to best work with them. Reviewing a who's who of potential project participants. Many roles are required to complete a project successfully. Management roles, for providing information, and other roles, for creating and delivering the right solution. Note, even though we use common job titles to categorize the different roles, don't get hung up on the titles. It's more important that you recognize what roles are needed for what purpose. The titles used in your company may be different. Starting at the top with management, the people on the management side hold titles such as executive sponsor, account manager, product manager, and project manager. These people manage the project and business areas and are generally the highest ranking member of the project. Executive sponsor. The executive sponsor is the raison d'être of the project or initiative. The person who initiates the project has a vision of what the end product should be and comes up with the project to accomplish it. The project may be integrating a commercial off-the-shelf COTS tool or improving the efficiency of a claims process. The executive sponsor also provides the funding for the project. After all, he is the one who wants it done, so he has to pony up the money. An executive sponsor approves project scope and signs off on requirements, is most interested in high-level information, and how it relates to the funding of the project. Generally isn't concerned with the detailed, day-to-day operations and minutiae of the project. If a stalemate regarding the project's direction ever occurs, the buck really does stop at the executive sponsor. Why? Simple. He is the one paying for the project. Account manager. A product manager. The account or product manager may hold a higher level manager title, but this person defines the overall requirements and marketing approach for the product. Account and product managers are representatives of the external customer. They are the intermediaries between the external customer and the business, finding out what the customer wants and creating product requirements based on that information. The account or product manager makes decisions regarding project direction, reviews project requirements, and may also review overall project requirements with the executive sponsor and guide and advise him on sign-off. Generally has decision-making authority, is more involved with the project than the executive sponsor. Note: don't get caught up in the exact title of the person performing this role. Someone with the title of project manager or some other title may play this role. Project manager. The project manager, PM, is responsible for managing the project, including the project plan, the project scope and deliverables, and the work breakdown structure, WBS. The WBS is the detailed task list outlining who is responsible for each task, the amount of time to complete, and the dependencies each task has on another. During project execution, the PM ensures the project scope continues to align with the project objectives, and he raises any concerns with the adjusted project plan, including any missed dates or expired deadlines. As the project moves forward and new opportunities or product features are discussed, the PM ensures that changes in scope are relevant to the scope and aligned with the project goal. The PM will probably look to you for help with understanding the impact that a scope change has to the project. He then reports those scope changes in terms of the project impact to the executive sponsor. A project manager identifies and staffs the appropriate project team members, creates the project plan for the overall project, and seeks input on the requirements plan from the business analyst, reports on status for the entire project, manages the project risk plan and executes risk responses if a risk is realized, addresses and overcomes project barriers affecting completion of the project, looks to the BA for updates on the progress of the requirements phase, manages the project change control process, working with the BA to address project impact during change control. Sometimes, you may find yourself playing the dual role of BA to PM, which can be a challenge because of the natural conflict between roles. The BA function focuses on analyzing items of the project. The PM function focuses on meeting the project dates. If you tend to like one role more than the other, be careful not to concentrate on one at the expense of the other. Seeking subject matter experts. Subject matter experts, SMEs, are surprise experts in the particular business or solution area you are working in for your project. These are the people you interview in order to craft your business requirements. You work with two kinds of subject matter experts: domain experts and implementation experts. Domain subject matter experts, domain SMEs, are the people who provide project objectives, potential problems, and risks from the business perspective. They are business people, and their job is understanding the business. To get to the right domain SME for your project, make sure you understand the subject matter expertise and who can best explain it. For instance, if you're looking for information about a flight management system, you probably want to talk to a pilot, but if you're interested in the maintenance of that system, you want to talk to an aircraft mechanic. In any domain, make sure you're asking the person who actually performs the job. Other people may have an idea about how it's done, but the best person to ask is the person who performs the process. Domain SMEs also set the priority of the project objectives and the requirements based on what they need to accomplish from the business perspective. You may help them prioritize by giving them guidance on impacts and analysis, but ultimately, they own the business area and the prioritization. Understand that addressing the most critical business requirements, business needs, is the value attached to the prioritization on the requirements. So it's very important to understand the difference between the business requirement and a solution. A domain SME provides information about the business and specific business terms, provides detailed requirements related to business processes, and data, offers suggestions as to potential solutions to the business problem or opportunity related to the project, assists in defining project scope, works with the BA on user interfaces, business processes, data, and business rule definition, reviews detailed requirements documents, user interfaces, business process diagrams, and other deliverables to validate that the project and solution is right for the business, Because domain subject matter experts typically work within the problem area for a long time, they often figure out workarounds and solutions to their problems and want you to use them as the project solution. Don't take their word for it, though. Forge ahead with your process. You may find that the SME solutions are viable in the end, but you must give them a fair analysis. Implementation subject matter expert. The implementation SME is the one who provides technical expertise on how to develop a solution to solve the business's problem. In a software environment, you're talking about someone like the developer, lead developer, or software architect. In a warehousing business area, it may be a logistics expert or warehousing engineer. Implementation SMEs provide possible solutions to solve the business problem and can respond and provide guidance about other possible solutions. For example, if a solution or screen design may not be possible with the current limitations of tools, the implementation SME will work to guide the solution team down a path to create a feasible solution. Generally, the majority of the resources come into the project at the phase when you're creating some sort of project solution. An implementation SME guides the project team on possible solutions to the business problem, works with the BA to create user interfaces, and makes sure the interface supports the real work of the business, ensures that the suggested solutions are feasible from an implementation perspective, and provides guidance on the impact of alternate approaches. Adding project support personnel. Project support personnel are those who support the project in various ways as it moves along. They are usually not assigned as 100% full-time resources on any one project. Rather, they function as specialists supporting multiple projects within an organization. They allocate their time based on the project priority within the organization. Think of these people as advisors or consultants. For instance, unless you're building an application to support the legal department, you probably don't need to understand the legal department's business processes. But a few members of that department may be stakeholders within your project. They may give you guidelines about how long to store customer data, or what types of customer data you're allowed to store. You may have to run a solution the group comes up with by legal to get it approved. Of course, legal isn't the only department that falls into this category. If you're designing user interfaces for external customers, you may need a usability engineer or information architect. You can understand where the project support people are within the organization, to what extent you need their advice, and how much time they have to support your project by looking at the organizational chart, or by asking other stakeholders, and even BAS, who are in other areas of the business. Project support personnel may be involved in providing the group with constraints for the solution, based on what the team is designing, are assigned to your project and act in a consulting capacity, are experts in the subject matter they are working within, and are brought into your project as a project support person (PSP). Guide the project team within their particular advisory subject matter area. Organization change management professional. The organization change management professional facilitates acceptance of solutions, creates the change management plans, and advocates the need for the change. Usually, you find organization change management professionals assigned to big, highly strategic, company-wide projects, such as switching 4,500 account executives to a new sales system. As a BA, do you find you do these things? You probably answered yes, and you're right. On many projects, this role usually falls to the BA rather than to a separate resource. See more on this in Chapter 15. Regulators are the people and organizations creating guidelines and possibly constraints on your project and solution. Think of them as the legal department within your organization. They specify what you can and can't do with your project. You may be implementing a solution to ensure that your organization adheres to industry or government regulations. Additionally, they may guide how you have to produce some of your deliverables. In the case of the armed forces, for example, certain documentation must conform to U.S. defense standards in order to be accepted by the customer. Similarly, communications companies must adhere to guidelines imposed by the Federal Communications Commission (FCC). The regulators also impose audit standards around the project. Technical writer: the technical writer writes the software manuals, online help and web page help text, and user training manuals. The tech writer understands both how the solution functions and the audience who will be reading the produced tech manuals. Technical writers are mainly concerned with requirements such as the workflows or process maps or diagrams, and the external agents or actors, the people who will be using the system. Although they deal with technical stuff, they support the project only when necessary. Turning to technical personnel: the technical personnel are those resources, the corporate way of saying people, on a project who help address how technology supports and fulfills the business requirements. If the solution for your project is a technical one, they build the solution. The earlier they are involved in the project, the better. They can provide guidance if the suggested solution isn't technologically feasible. Some of the duties technical personnel perform include designing the solution and system security, system architecture, and network architecture. They also create the interfaces with other computer systems and databases. Technical personnel also assist the testing effort by unit testing the programs and modules they write as part of the proposed project solution. They make sure the modules work well independently prior to integration testing. They may also help with integration testing. Technical personnel are interested in how the software needs to support the business need to understand the business and solution requirements so they can code a solution that matches what the business needs. Interact with the BA to fully understand the needs of the business. Work best with others who have some technical knowledge. You don't have to be able to speak in computer programming language, but you do need to know the basics that are relevant to your project. Make sure the technical personnel's efforts support the original business requirements and functional design. You don't want the technical personnel to develop a solution that does not address the business need. A programmer who states, "I know what the business needs better than the business does," isn't the kind of programmer you want on the project. He'll program what he thinks the business wants even though the business states something completely different. The best way to overcome this issue is to bring the programmers in during the design phase or earlier. Then they can offer suggestions and make the user interface work within the boundaries of the system. When they are involved early, they have a stake in the solution because they helped design it, and will be hesitant to change it unnecessarily during the course of the implementation. Usability engineers primarily design user interfaces. People in this position have experience with how humans interact with machines, and they bring insight to the field of man-machine interface. If you're working on a customer-facing application, an application used by public consumers versus internally or on the back end, you're probably more likely to have one of these people on your project. Think of Apple. Many people think Apple's products are easier to use than a competitor's product, and that's because Apple has people that understand how users interface with a product and address that need to make it easier. Usability engineers also assess usability for user interfaces they didn't necessarily design, and may assist with testing for defects that may inhibit usability of the solution. Quality assurance personnel. Quality assurance (QA) personnel are responsible for assuring the team delivers a quality product. On a project, their first initiative is to review the project requirements and write test plans. These people are a very big help for the BA, so you want to befriend them early on in the project. They look at every requirement to make sure they can test it and verify it. If they can't verify it, then the requirement is not clear enough. This will mean the technical team won't have clarity on how the solution should address that requirement. By looking at your requirements early on, they can filter out ambiguous statements such as the software should be easy to use. QA folks are also responsible for setting up the test environments, writing test cases, executing and overseeing testing activities, and reporting and following up on defects. Database Administrator. The Database Administrator, DBA, sometimes called a data administrator, looks at data from an enterprise-wide perspective. The project you work on will most likely use data. Instead of creating a brand new database, the DBA looks to see where data already exists within the organization and whether it can be reused for the project. He also provides data naming standards and conventions. As a BA, you may consult with the DBA on logical data modeling techniques. Your job isn't to design a database, but you should work on the logical relationships from a business perspective. The DBA can help with that from his data knowledge base. DBA generally wants to help because he is ultimately responsible for designing the physical database. Identifying the stakeholders in your project. Participants also have project-related roles and duties that are separate, although related, from their professional responsibilities, which we lay out in the earlier section reviewing a who's who of potential project participants. Just like actors in a play, stakeholders have roles in the project. Someone may have the title of Retail Salesperson Level 1, but they are the SME for the retail sales project, which ends up being their role in the project. You use two main steps in identifying your cast of stakeholders: a stakeholder list and an RACI matrix. Find your stakeholders. The first thing to do is look for all the stakeholders, anyone who impacts or is impacted on the project. A stakeholder is a group or person who has interests that may be affected by an initiative or has influence over it. Stakeholders can be found anywhere for a project. If you identify a group or department, make sure you identify the correct individual stakeholders within a stakeholder group. Someone has to be the point person. Here is how to create a stakeholder list. 1. Analyze the project documentation. Look for people, groups, departments, customers, and project team members. That is the heart of business analysis for dummies. If it helped, a quick subscribe keeps more summaries coming. So how do project and business connect? That is exactly where we started. Go back to the top and watch it click into place.